Hey there. You ready to dive into a fascinating life? We're going beyond the headlines today because you wanted the real Alice Walton, not just Walmart heiress.
And trust me, it's way more interesting than you might think. We're about to uncover a story of art ambition and a drive to make a difference that goes far beyond a simple inheritance.
Exactly. We're working with excerpts from her Wikipedia page, so we're sticking to the facts, but even those are pretty revealing. Born in 1949, raised in Arkansas. Pretty standard, right?
Until you get to the part where she doesn't follow the typical path. Sure, she studies economics, but then becomes a financial analyst, even heads investment for a bank. This is a sharp mind at work, even before we get to the art world.
And that's where things get really interesting because this wasn't just some hobby she picked up. This was a lifelong passion. She bought her first museum-quality pieces back in the late 80s.
And that passion led her to create Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville. 200,000 square feet, designed by the renowned architect Moshe Safdie, sitting on 120 acres. This wasn't a vanity project, it was a statement.
And the statement wasn't just, look what I can afford. This museum, it's completely free to the public. Since 2011, over 5 million people have visited.
It gets to the heart of a question a lot of people have about Alice Walton. What do you do with such wealth? She could have kept her collection private, but she chose to share it. And that's a recurring theme we'll see.
So what kind of art spoke to her? Was it all big names trying to impress the art world?
She acquired a wide range from Winslow Homer to Georgia O'Keeffe, even a portrait of George Washington by Charles Wilson Peale. But she wasn't chasing fame. She was after something else.
What do you mean?
She's talked about artists like Marston Hartley, Andrew Wyeth, their raw emotion, spirituality, even a painting that reminded her of quitting smoking, echoing a John Singer Sargent work.
So she's connecting with these pieces on a personal level, even if they weren't the most famous or expensive.
And that's crucial to understanding her philanthropy. It's not just about throwing money around, it's about deep personal investment.
We've got to talk about kindred spirits, though. That purchase was huge news.
You're talking about the Asher B. Durand painting, depicting the artist Thomas Cole with the poet William Cullen Bryant. It had been in the New York Public Library for over a century.
And she swooped in, paid a rumored $35 million for it back in 2005. What a power move.
Think about it. She brought a piece of American art history from one of the country's most iconic institutions to a town many hadn't even heard of before. That's a statement about more than just money.
So Crystal Bridges was just the beginning. She founded the Art Bridges Foundation in 2017, right? What's the story there?
It's about reaching beyond those 120 acres. Art Bridges partners with smaller museums, loans pieces from Alice Walton's collection, organizes traveling exhibitions.
So she's using her clout to elevate other institutions, spread the love of art further. It's like she's democratizing access in a way.
Exactly. And this threads through all her philanthropy. Take the Alice L. Walton Foundation, education, health initiatives, economic development, always focused on creating opportunity.
And then there's the Whole Health Institute, which she established in 2019, or she's even building a medical school.
The Alice L. Walton School of Medicine, a nonprofit in Bentonville, focused on holistic healthcare. Construction began in 2023, first class, hopefully enrolling in 2025.
Wow, talk about putting your money where your mouth is. And it's all happening near Crystal Bridges. It's like she's building a whole ecosystem of art, health, and opportunity.
And let's not forget, this is a woman who already had a successful finance career. She founded Llama Company, an investment bank, back in 1988.
Llama Company, such a curious name. What was she like in those days?
She was president, chairwoman, and CEO. But even back then, she wasn't afraid to tackle big, impactful projects. Remember that story about the airport?
Oh yeah, something about Northwest Arkansas needing a bigger airport.
This was in the late 90s. The Northwest Arkansas Council, which she chaired, realized they needed a major airport for the region to thrive.
That's thinking big picture. So how involved was she in this airport project?
She was instrumental. Not only did she contribute $15 million of her own money to get the project off the ground, but Llama Company, her firm, underwrote a $79.5 million bond.
Wow, that's serious commitment. And I'm guessing they named a terminal after her.
You bet. The Alice L. Walton Terminal building opened in 1998. She was even inducted into the Arkansas Aviation Hall of Fame in 2001.
Okay, so we're seeing this pattern. Alice Walton sees a need, she invests heavily, and she gets personally involved to make it happen. But it's more than just having the money, right?
Exactly. It's the drive, the vision, the willingness to take risks and challenge the status quo. And that's what makes her so fascinating, the why. behind the wealth.
So it's not enough to just talk about the art, the philanthropy, the business deals. We need to understand the motivations, the experiences that shaped her worldview.
And that's where things get even more interesting. Because when you look closer at Alice Walton's life, you see a story full of contrasts and unexpected turns.
It's like we're getting a glimpse behind the curtains, seeing the person behind the persona. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Exactly. Take her love for horses, for instance. She owned this massive ranch in Texas, Walton's Rocking W Ranch, over 1,400 acres. It even had a landing strip for her private jet.
Talk about a passion project. But it wasn't just about luxury, right? She was really into cutting horses, which is serious business in the equestrian world.
She wasn't just dabbling. People who knew her from that world say she had a real talent for spotting champion cutters, even as foals. Imagine having that eye, knowing which young horse would become a star.
It speaks to a certain intuition, a deep understanding of something beyond the surface. And that seems to be a recurring theme with her.
Absolutely. But even with her love for the ranch, she listed it for sale in 2015 for a cool $48 million. She moved to Fort Worth, said she wanted to focus on crystal bridges.
So art wins out again. It's like her passions pull her in different directions, but that dedication to sharing art, making it accessible, that's a constant.
And yet there's another twist. In 2020, she moves back to Bentonville, Arkansas, back to her roots where her family's story began.
That's quite a statement. Maybe a new chapter unfolding even more focused on her hometown.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And it makes you wonder about the pull of place of legacy. Remember, she's been recognized for her contributions to Bentonville time and again. Time magazine's 100 Most Influential People in 2012, for example.
And the accolades go beyond just business or philanthropy. The Smithsonian Institution's Archives of American Art Medal in 2013, the International Women's Forum's Hall of Fame in 2018, she's made her mark.
And she's still going strong. The J. Paul Getty Medal in 2020 for her philanthropy and leadership in the arts. It's clear she's driven to make a difference.
Which brings us to another fascinating aspect of her story, her political leanings. You'd think someone with her background would be easy to pin down right.
Not a chance. Alice Walton has publicly identified as an independent, and her political donations are all over the map. Democrats, Republicans. It's less about party lines and more about what resonates with her personally.
So she's not afraid to go against the grain even when it comes to politics. Give us some examples.
Back in 2004, she was the 20th largest individual donor to those 527 committees, the ones that can raise unlimited funds. She gave $2.6 million to a conservative group called Progress for America.
Wow. Okay, so she's not afraid to back conservative causes. But then in 2016, she donates to Hillary Clinton's campaign. What's the story there?
It seems like she's more interested in supporting individuals and causes that align with her values, regardless of their political affiliation. She donated over $350,000 to the Hillary Victory Fund that year.
So we're seeing a pattern of her forging her own path, whether it's art, business, or even politics. It's like she's looking at the bigger picture, not just following the crowd.
Exactly. And that makes her a bit of an enigma, even with all the public attention she's received.
Speaking of enigma, let's talk about her personal life. She's notoriously private, but we know she's been married twice.
Both marriages ended in divorce, and the details are scarce. Her first marriage was in 1974 when she was just 24 to an investment banker from Louisiana.
2 years later, it was over, and then...
Well, the second marriage was shortly after the first, and it was to the contractor who built her swimming pool.
That's an interesting detail. You'd think we'd know more about the life of someone so public, yet she's managed to keep a lot of it under wraps.
It seems like her passions have always been her driving force. No children, and those marriages were relatively brief chapters compared to her dedication to art, philanthropy, and making a difference.
And she's faced her share of challenges, too. We can't ignore the car accidents, especially the one in 1989 where she struck and killed a pedestrian.
It's a tragic event, and it's important to acknowledge it as part of her story. It's a reminder that even with all the privilege in the world, life can change in an instant.
The fact that she wasn't charged sparked a lot of controversy, accusations of preferential treatment because of her wealth and connections.
And then there was the DUI arrest in 1998, which further complicated the narrative around her.
It's a lot to unpack. On the one hand, you have this incredibly generous philanthropist, this visionary art enthusiast, a woman who built a career and challenged conventions.
And on the other hand, you have these tragic mistakes, these moments where her actions had devastating consequences. It makes you think about the complexities of human nature, the weight of scrutiny when you're in the public eye.
And the fact that no one is simply one thing, good or bad. It's all part of the tapestry of a life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so important. We're not trying to make excuses or pass judgment. We're trying to understand the nuances, the contradictions that make up a life as complex and impactful as Alice Walton's.
It really is. It makes you think about, like you said, the fact that everyone is complex and has these different layers.
It's a good reminder. And these incidents, they've clearly shaped how people view her, but they've also shaped Alice Walton herself, you know?
That's what I keep coming back to. It's not just about judging her from the outside. It's about how these events changed her internally.
Right, think about it. She's been very open about her struggles, both physical and emotional. The '83 car accident where she was seriously injured,
Huh.
the public scrutiny after the '89 fatality. These things, I mean, they leave a mark.
Yeah. It makes her commitment to things like healthcare and opportunity seem even more significant.
Yeah.
It's like she's trying to create a world where those kinds of tragedies are less likely to happen.
It's like she's trying to address the systemic issues that contribute to these problems, not just like, put a Band-Aid on them, which is, I think, a really important distinction to make.
It is. Because it speaks to a deeper motivation than just wanting to, I don't know, look good or clear her conscience.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes this whole deep dive so compelling. It would be easy to write Alice Walton off as just another billionaire, but when you look closer,
You see so much more.
right, someone who's been touched by tragedy, who's made mistakes, but who's also trying to use her platform and resources to make a real difference.
And who continues to surprise us. Whether it's with her eclectic art collection, her bold philanthropic endeavors, or her unpredictable political donations.
She's definitely not afraid to go her own way, to challenge conventions and to use her voice and her wealth to support what she believes in.
She keeps us on our toes, that's for sure.
She does. She's a walking contradiction in many ways, but that's what makes her so fascinating. She defies easy categorization, and I think that's a powerful message in and of itself.
It is. It's a reminder that people are complex, multifaceted, capable of both great things and terrible mistakes.
And that ultimately it's up to each of us to decide how we view their legacy, taking into account the full spectrum of their experiences and actions.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to know what stands out to you the most about Alice Walton? What's your biggest takeaway from exploring her story?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Hmm.
I think what resonates with me most is her unwavering commitment to making a difference. Whether it's through art, healthcare, or creating opportunities, she's not just sitting on her wealth. She's actively trying to use it to create a better world.
That's a powerful takeaway, and I think it's something we can all learn from regardless of our own financial situations. It's about finding your passion, identifying a need, and then using whatever resources you have to make a positive impact.
Absolutely. And maybe, just maybe, Alice Walton's story will inspire some of our listeners to do just that.
I hope so. Well, on that note, it's time for us to surface from this deep dive. But before we go, I want to thank you, the listener, for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it as enlightening and thought-provoking as we have.
It's been a pleasure exploring this complex and fascinating life with you.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep challenging assumptions, and keep diving deep into the stories that shape our world.